Hey everybody, KC here. So I got a note the other day from my friends up at Cornell University, who place I'm occasionally had the chance to go up and teach. It is the very definition of a classical college. It's totally cool up there, and basically they're going to be doing a program in a few weeks. It's a live virtual conference that's going to take place over a series of days, and it's called Rethinking Retail and Brands. It's a certificate program, and the idea is they want to get people who enroll, and it can be from a lot of different segments of the industry, to think about their businesses differently. And I was intrigued by it. I was looking at the key course takeaways, and number one on the list was establish a flexible mindset to adjust to the changing retail landscape. And this is interesting to me, not because I have any question about why people should do it. The question to me is how. So I was curious how they're doing that. And as sort of an adjunct to that, I was curious about how education is being more flexible in this new environment. So I reached out to my friend Dan Hooker, who's on the faculty at Cornell. He's involved with putting together this program, and I thought I'd ask him the question. And here's our conversation. Dan Hooker, welcome to Morning News Beat.
Hey, Kevin. Good morning. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Love that Cornell thing in the background there. That's, it just makes me, college always makes me feel good. So
makes me feel part of the environment, on brand, and ready to teach and learn and impart my wisdom.
There you go. So I was telling the Morning News Beat audience a little bit about this virtual conference, Rethinking Retail and Brands, that you guys are doing. And I just had when I was thumbing through the agenda, and I just had a couple of questions that I think I'd love to get your take on it, since you're actually going to be teaching professionals this stuff. But the first key course takeaway said one of the goals is to establish a flexible mindset to adjust to the changing retail landscape. That sounds great. How do you do it? And I talk about this stuff all the time, but I'd love to know, how do you get people to do that if you're trying to teach them that in the classroom?
Yeah, so flexibility. I mean, the world's turned upside down, as we all know, and we don't know exactly what the future is going to look like. So as a leader in your company, you have to have the flexibility to adjust, to pivot, depending on what circumstances are going to come our way. And in this program, we have this process called architected solutions. And each participant of the program will create this strategy or this operations plan that builds sequentially through the program. So on the first day, we talk about the consumer. We talk about what's happening in retail, what's happening with brands and innovation, and get the participants to think about all the possible outcomes that are coming, and give them some of the tools to be ready and to be flexible and to be able to pivot. And so that's the purpose of the program. It gets the participants to think differently about how they approach the business, because there's going to be so many unknowns coming. And that's one of the objectives. But at the same time, we want to sort of develop this plan that each person can take back to their prospective company, department, or business challenge and apply it to the business.
But drill down on that a little bit. I mean, because I think we all say people should be more flexible, they should be more agile. These are the things that people need to do to be successful. And I think that certainly what's been going on in the industry for the last 7 months has sort of proven that. But beyond saying, okay, we're going to help you develop a plan, how do you get people to be more flexible? It's a hard, I'm asking the question because I have a hard time with it, just even myself. I mean, I think everybody should do it, but I have no idea how to explain how to get people to be that way. I can understand why, I can explain why you should be that way. I have trouble explaining how to get there.
Yeah, I think having tools is helpful. And I'll give you an example. If you think about supply chain, right? And everyone's supply chain has been disrupted, and everyone has to think differently about how to supply their stores or their warehouses or their customers. So you have to have a flexible mindset and look at all the different options on whether that's opening up new fulfillment centers, partnering with another company, or figuring out another way to fulfill your products to your customer. So giving people the tools so that they have a way to think differently is
Hmm.
really helpful. Yeah, it's easy to say, all right, let's have a flexible mindset. Let's have the ability to think differently. But if you don't have the tools to do that, it's really hard to actually execute against, and you end up just talking about it. Okay. One example would be the consumer. We have the millennials, we have Gen Z. These are shoppers who don't regularly go to a store. So the old way of, store first, brick and mortar first is completely changed for them. They shop on their phone, they shop through social media, they do go in stores, they go to restaurants, and the
Well, they
business
used to
leaders
go to
understand.
restaurants.
It's
Things
starting to
have
come back
changed.
to your restaurants. It's funny. I think of Starbucks.
Right.
Starbucks for dinner. That's a normal thing for certain people in
Right.
that demographic. And business leaders need to think, okay, if Starbucks for dinner, is an option for a customer, and I'm a brand holder, how do I reach that customer in a different way? And so in the program, we're going to give participants the tools on the ways to think differently, and have that flexibility when they think about their challenges or how they want to reposition their business for the future. So I think, to answer your specific question, you know, I can't make someone have a flexible mindset, but I can help them if they see things differently and have some tools that will help them be more flexible as they face the changing world, or rapidly changing world.
Is it different for, I would imagine, well, I imagine, first of all, the needs are different depending on the size companies that you have. I mean, you're up in Ithaca, and if you had a 1 or 2 store retailer, food retailer, from Ithaca, New York, come to you, and he's competing with Wegmans, he's going to have different needs and different requirements than if, say, Publix sends somebody to you, or or Kroger sends somebody to you. Is the course kind of keyed so that people with different needs are going to get different kinds of uh, different muscles stretched, if you will?
Yeah, and it's the program's applicable to a large chain store retailer or a small, one store owner, in so much that the courses in the program are designed to think about your own specific business. And we arranged the program around 4 things. First is strategy, second is operations, third is technology, and fourth is organization and people. And so if you're that small one store owner, you have to think about the competition, the changing consumer, how you service them. And then you might have to think more about, what's the idea of theater? How do I bring that shopper back safely, and capture their shopping experience and delight them, as opposed to the bigger chains might have to think more broadly about scale and rolling out, curbside delivery, or think about how they sanitize their stores and communicate that message to their shoppers more clearly, so people are comfortable shopping in that larger environment with higher volume and more people. So this program is designed for, the one store owner or the multi-chain owner, the brand holder, the small startup company, and all the service providers in between. And it's this architected solutions process will make all the learnings from the course applicable to the specific business.
It's interesting. In some ways, I suppose retailers are facing some of the same challenges that educators face, right? I mean, so many retailers, even if they were in e-commerce, they were still, they felt that brick and mortar, that was the core of their business. And then the pandemic comes, and suddenly it accelerates changes that were happening anyway. And suddenly they're doing, 10, 15, 25% of their business online. It may back off a little bit from that, but it's never going to go back to where it was 10 months ago, let's say. It's sort of the same challenge that people face in education, I think, especially in higher education, right? You were used to people coming into the class. I mean, I do the same thing in Portland State, right? The pleasure is in kids coming into the classroom. They sit together. You talk to them, you lecture them, but you also try to get them to think and bounce things off each other. And it was highly keyed to that sort of sense of community that if you could build in a classroom. And now that doesn't exist, and to a great extent. And so you're having to develop programs, I suppose, like this one, that sort of say, okay, how do we reinvent the educational experience in the same way that retailers have to reinvent the retail experience?
Yeah, I actually volunteered to teach live at Cornell. So I have a class on Monday, Wednesday, Friday where I have 30 students live in class, and I have another 20 students on Zoom, on the big screen. And for sure, it's challenging logistically on how to teach that course, engage with the students live in real time, as well as keep the students on Zoom engaged and get them to participate. And it's really even more challenging when you don't have the right technology. I mean, we're fortunate at Cornell that we've been teaching remotely and asynchronously for many years. So a lot of our rooms are set up to do this kind of virtual learning, virtual training, and it works well. But you're right, the students aren't engaged. They're sitting apart. They're hard to hear each other, and it's hard to generate sometimes that conversation around whatever the topic is I'm trying to teach. So Cornell, for sure, and higher education has gone through this learning curve on how to provide the same level of quality education that we used to before the pandemic. And we're lucky. Cornell's been one of those universities that's taken the right steps around contact tracing and regular testing and surveillance testing. So our incident rate is pretty low. That's not to say we'll let our guard down, but we have the resources to make the environment as good as can be given what's happening today. But we face the same kind of challenges that retailers face. We want our students to be safe. We want them to follow the right social distancing protocols, and we want to give them a high quality product that they'll want to come back for, or at least tell others to come as well. So it is challenging. It's very similar to what a retail has to do.
I would think, and feel free to disagree with me on this one, I don't think retail is ever going to go back. I mean, I think things will back off a little bit, but that this sort of new paradigm that's been created by the pandemic is only going to continue to move forward. And that retail, people who think, oh, things are going to go back to the way they were, I think they're kidding themselves. What's your sense of it about education? Will education go back to the way it was, or do you think this new model is sort of that's the future?
My personal opinion, and not necessarily the opinion of
All right.
Cornell, there's a bifurcation happening in higher education. There's premium brands like Cornell University that I think are going to continue to thrive. They have large endowment and great alumni support, and they offer a very premium product, but not everyone can afford that. And we only take a select group of students into our program. And I think those premium brands are going to continue to thrive. On the other side, the schools that provide a great education at a lower price. One example would be the SUNY system or the UC California system. I think those are going to continue to thrive and do well too. It's like retail. The ones in the middle that are going to have a real tough time in surviving this global pandemic because one, economics, and two, if the product isn't high quality, then it's going to be hard for them to get repeat business in terms of families sending their children or children attending I shouldn't say children, people attending the programs. So I think that's what will probably play out. Again, only my opinion, but similar to what's happening with retailers, the big power buyers, the big ones, the big operators, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Kroger, they're thriving. They're going to continue to thrive. They have the resources to service this customer that wants touchless retail. And unfortunately, some of those retailers in the middle that don't have or can't, recapture that shopper through some type of other value proposition like experience or in-store theater like you would get at a Wegmans, may not make it out. So I think there's a lot of parallels between the two that are happening.
Well, and to go back to where we started, right? It'll be the ones that are flexible enough to figure out how to reinvent the experience so that it's relevant to the customer, whether it's a student or a shopper. The ones who
Yep.
can figure out how to make the experience resonate for them in a different kind of, in whatever way it needs to. They'll be the ones that'll survive and thrive, and it'll be the ones that don't do those things in either industry. Those will be the ones that fail.
Yeah, I think the same holds for consumer packaged goods and big brands. You know, right now there's this resurgence of big A brands, products and brands that consumers feel comfortable with buying. Um, but what happens in 6 months when retailers start to put their shelves back together, and they're going to be worried more about supply, and there's less disposable income because of the recession that we're going into, and just private brands continue to grow and take more share of the shelf, whether that's the real shelf or the virtual shelf. So I think the CPGs need to really think about how they continue to target their shopper, the shoppers, the consumer, and make sure that they're not just doing it the traditional way, but look at all the other ways that shoppers and consumers are shopping today, and make sure that they're getting that message in front of them. And so I think that's important. And that's one of the learnings from the rethinking retail and brands too.
I was going to ask you to tell the audience how to find out more about the program, but it ends up that the link is https colon backslash backslash www.ecornell.com backslash certificates backslash financial dash management backslash rethinking dash retail dash and dash brands backslash. So I think what I'll do is I'll just provide a link on the text side of it.
Yeah, just type that in your browser. Another way to find it is to search in Google Cornell University Rethinking Retail and Brands, and usually it comes up in the top search. But that's another way. The course is listed on eCornell, or remember that link that Kevin just provided and type that in your browser.
So Rethinking Retail and Brands, eCornell. It is a certificate program. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get lots of people to sign up for it. And maybe you'll come back when it's all over and tell us what you learned. Because I always found being in the classroom, I learned more than the students who were there.
I do, and I have a really flexible mindset. So
There you go.
I'm ready to
Hey, listen, good luck. Thanks for doing
Thank
this.
you, Kevin. Have a great one. Bye.